Hey everyone, and welcome back. Now today I wanted to talk about the Bitcoin Money Zone. Now, as intriguing as this sounds, we're going to wait on that for a second, and we're going to dive right into a more overall view on the market, and then we'll dive into Bitcoin specifically. So starting out, I wanted to look at the crypto bubbles. As we can see, it's an overall pretty green day today. Things are looking good overall. You know, kind of mixed, I would say, just relative, like kind of overall. AI tokens still look to be kind of dropping a little bit. We've got render pulling back a little bit as well, but also, we've got some pretty decent green ones out here as well. So moving on after that, I did want to go into the fear and greed index. Probably to nobody's surprise, we are still back in fear. At some point, we will probably break out of this, but who knows? Maybe not. I don't know. So moving on, I wanted to dive into the Bitcoin USD chart. As we could see, there's just a lot of choppiness going on, and ultimately, kind of as I've said before on the channel, being a content creator, this is definitely not something that I like to see. But realistically, I mean, it's just kind of boring right now, And what we're seeing is we are in a downward channel. There is choppiness overall, but realistically, I don't really expect to see anything too crazy happening until we actually break outside of this channel, either to the upside or the downside. Hopefully it's the upside. I personally have a bias and believe that it will be the upside. If it's the downside, that sucks for all of us probably. But ultimately, I do think it'll be the upside eventually. This is, this kind of will lead us into talking about the Bitcoin Money Zone. But before then, we can see generally it's very choppy. Trading, if you do trade, I would say, be very careful. This is the time when a lot of people get wrecked and a lot of people lose a lot of money because they're trading in overall choppiness. And from my cynical self, the way I'm looking at this is here to essentially just wipe leverage, and that's really what most of these moves are fueled by. And until we start to see some more fundamental changes happening within the market, a lot of it is here the big moves are going to be to wipe leverage overall. So before we get talking more in detail about the Bitcoin Money Zone, if you do enjoy the content that I am providing, please do like and subscribe. It really does help me out. This is still a relatively new channel, and I am trying to broaden the reach of people that I'm talking to on YouTube, hopefully to help provide some more people good information on the market, and also with new projects in the space, and essentially just trying to keep up to date generally with the crypto ecosystem. So now let's get into what we've all been waiting for, which is, what is the Bitcoin Money Zone? Now, this is a good question. The Bitcoin Money Zone is what I've essentially made it up. But realistically, as we can see historically, if we look at both the average and median performances, Q4 is by far the best performer for Bitcoin, and Q3 is by far the worst performer. So what we're seeing right now, and I think that's why a lot of people are getting kind of shaken out of the market, is one, possibly because of boredom, and two, just because not a lot's going on. It's very shaky. People are afraid of moves to the downside. Every time we get a move to the upside, it does not feel sustainable and it comes right back. So there's a lot of, I would say, like fatigue going on in the market overall. And hopefully if you're watching my channel, you're not falling victim to this, because we do talk about a lot of this type of stuff on the channel a lot. And so, as I've mentioned a couple times in some of the comments that people have left me, there's kind of an old saying, I can't remember by who it is exactly, but there's a saying that says, money is not made in the buying or the selling, it's made in the waiting. And honestly, I think there's a lot of validity to that, because waiting is the hardest part, because it's boring and it takes time and there's really no way around it. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind as you're here in the market, kind of trudging through with the rest of us. But what we can see is Q4 very much so is a really good time to be a Bitcoin holder. And so, this is something that I'm definitely looking forward to. I'm not necessarily expecting a move, but if a move were to happen, like this historically seems to be a pretty good time. This is also coupled with the fact that the US election will be over. That in itself causes a lot of global, I guess, tension, or maybe kind of like wait and see type of attitude for a lot of this type of stuff. So, this is something where, we can see Q4 is definitely good for Bitcoin. I personally will probably be going very heavy in terms of my buying into Bitcoin exclusively, because this is when it does perform the best. as we can see, Ethereum is more like Q1, Q2 performing, which again, logically for kind of extrapolating this out does make sense, because if Bitcoin leads the charge and this happens in Q4 and everything else follows, well, Q1 and Q2 are after Q4. That kind of makes sense. So anyway, obviously not financial advice. You need to make your own decisions, and you should not be listening to anybody on YouTube or anywhere for that matter regarding decisions involving your own money. So moving on, let's talk about the halving progress. This is something I also wanted to look at just regarding kind of where we're at in the cycle. So as we can see in 2013, things did kind of already start to move up at this point. I would say historically this is more of an early cycle. If we look at 2017, 2021, or the bull markets in those areas, we can see that this is still relatively flat. This is still relatively flat. We even saw a bit of a drawback here, and then we start to see the run up. Now, if we look here, it looks pretty similar, right? I would say it looks probably most similar to this one. This one did start to see a little bit of upward momentum. But overall, we have not come to kind of the hockey stick regions of the chart for either of these. And, this is what I'm calling the Bitcoin money zone, right? This is where a lot of the money has been made historically. I think a lot of us are operating under the assumption or the thesis that this is likely where it would be coming, again in the future. And we are seeing macro data to back this up, right? Like we're not just, over here high on hopium. I mean, we might be, who knows? But there are some macro things that are here to back this up, right? We've got the US election coming. Typically, Bitcoin has performed quite well after the US election has ended, regardless of which candidate wins, by the way. And also, there's a lot of like macro factors in terms of monetary policy. Usually when rates get cut, that also impacts the price of Bitcoin in a positive way. We're starting to see the Fed come around on price cuts, or not price cuts, but interest rate cuts. So there's a lot of things that are also starting to align with this cycle overall. Looking at this, I wanted to move towards the Bitcoin rainbow price chart. It's been a second since we've looked at this on the channel, and we can see right now that price is sitting very much within, it looks like it's in the buy zone. So it's not quite in the fire sale territory, but we are definitely sitting kind of in what looks like the middle channel of the buy zone. So, again, as we've seen before in previous bull runs, we do usually get up into the like FOMO intensifies at least. Sometimes we've previously gotten into the, sell, seriously sell territory, and also maximum bubble territory. So again, given just kind of the diminishing returns we've seen in subsequent halvings, like halving cycles, I don't necessarily think that we'll be getting up into like the sell, seriously sell, or the maximum bubble territory. We might get up into FOMO intensifies potentially, but I think it's probably a fairly safe bet to say that we would be getting into the like, is this a bubble territory? So that's kind of at least what I'm looking at right now. Another thing that we are seeing in the market that I would consider positive news is Bitcoin balance on exchanges. So looking at the chart here, we can see that, Bitcoin balances on exchanges have really crashed down to extremely low levels, which I would say is a pretty good thing. Usually when we see low balances on exchanges, this is something where, when retail interest and things like, and I guess at this point, even institutional interest, when they start to get more involved, there's definitely going to be like a liquidity crunch, because there's not going to be the Bitcoin to facilitate potentially the buys that are wanting to be made. So this is something that is definitely worth looking at, because obviously exchanges, control a lot of the like liquidity in terms of on ramps and off ramps within the market. So having such a massive drop in the supply is definitely interesting to see. And I actually heard something the other day that I think it was COINBASE or Binance. It was one of the two bigger ones. They actually had to move some Bitcoin from their cold storage, like their cold storage wallets, onto their exchange to help cover some of their liquidity needs, because so much was being pulled off. So, this is something that is, I would say, is a good thing, because if things are being pulled off exchanges, usually that means people are moving them to a place where they're not going to be looking at them anytime soon. So, that obviously produces a supply crunch, and supply crunches usually lead to some pretty dramatic price movement. So, overall things are looking pretty good in the crypto market. I know it's boring. I know it's like not the most, enjoyable thing that, any of us have probably been through, but also, this is just kind of how it goes, right? Like I said, money's not made in the buying or the selling, but it's made in the waiting. That I do believe is the case. And what we can see is, we are kind of seeing a confluence of a lot of this data starting to come together that is all pointing in one direction. And that is Bitcoin go up, right? And so that is essentially what I'm looking at. Who knows? I might be right, I might be wrong. I might be super right, I might be super wrong. We have no idea. But ultimately, that's kind of what I'm seeing. Again, I'm trying to do my best to keep an objective mind. Obviously, I do have a bias, so do take that into account. But I am trying to keep that in mind as well, and give it as objective of a look on the market as I can. So anyway, if you found the information in this video useful, please do give me a like and subscribe. It really does help me out. Also, if you have any feedback you'd like to give, please leave a comment. I also like reading those as well. I do reply to all of my comments as well. So if you do just want to interact with me, more personally, I'd be happy to see some comments coming through on the channel. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.